So I'm going to show you some snippets, some hotkeys, some ways of being more efficient in RStudio and with our Markdown. So I'm just going to do a series of operations and then I'll explain each of them after the fact, but you can see how quickly some data analysis could be done. I want to see all of the records that I have from my Fitbit data when my body weight was less than 240 pounds. So I'm just going to do that quick filter operation. So let's just see what I do first and I'll explain it all afterwards. All right, I'm just going to stick with this. I'm not going to make it a more complex example. But when I run that, I can see all my body weights that are less than 240 out of this data set. So what all did I do? I created a new code chunk. I gave that chunk a name. I grabbed my data frame. I piped that data frame into the dplyr filter function, and I said filter out all the values that the weight where weight is return all values where the weight is less than 240, and it returned a data frame. Now, if I wanted to keep this data frame and then perform a plot of just on these values and records, I would actually need to assign this to another variable, such as weight 240 or less, and assign that to that variable. Now, how did I add this assignment variable? I didn't type those characters. I did alt minus sign. This is the assignment character. And so the way you can read this is the variable weight 240 or less gets assigned the value of body data that is filtered to only show the values of less than 240. So when I do this, it shows up nothing. But then when I go weight 240 or less, and I run that piece of code with Control Enter, it shows me the data frame, and the data frame is now here. So I could then take this subset of data and then perform a visualization on it or whatever. So a couple of the hotkeys are alt minus, which is the assignment operator, and one of the best things is the pipe character to take a piece of data, typically a data frame in the tidyverse. You're going to take a data frame or a data.table, and you're going to pipe that into a function. It's basically the same thing as piping in Bash. The same sort of concept. You take this thing, you put it into another operation. And then in dplyr, I'm saying filter, and then because this is piped, it's basically this argument. So it's body data like this. So the argument is filter out this data based on these conditions. But because you're piping, all you need to do is just put the actual filter conditions. And that's one of the cool things about piping is then I could pipe this into another filter and then keep filtering based on what I actually want to see. And so I could see this incremental change and filtering and stuff. And it just makes it more legible and more easy to understand. I know there's a lot of people who have differences of opinion when it comes to the tidyverse and base R, but I actually really like this. And for my use case and purposes, it's sufficient and it works just fine. And I like it. But, and then how did I do the dplyr? How did I do that? So I did the assignment operator with alt minus. The pipe is actually from the package magritter. So it's library magritter. So this actually comes with the tidyverse. If you just import tidyverse, you'll get it, but it is also in this package, the magritter package. The pipe is amazing. And this isn't the only type of pipe. There are others, but this is the most commonly used. There's also if you're going to do something like SQL where you're like in something or return values that are in this vector, you could just do %in, and that is actually a valid operator. But I digress. So to do the pipe, it's Control-Shift-M, and that's built into RStudio. Control-Shift-M, and it does the pipe. Yay. As for the dplyr shortcut, there you can actually have, just like VS Code and most editors, you can have your own snippet files. So if I did df and did shift tab, it actually defaults to this with tab stops for me. So how do you do that? How do you get those snippets made? You can go to Tools, Global Options, and Code, and down here, Snippets. This lets you edit snippets. Now, if you make any changes here, and then save those changes in your RStudio directory or wherever RStudio is placed, there will actually be a snippets file there that you can then take, and it's plain text. You can take that, you can put it on GitHub, and actually I did. I have my snippets on GitHub, actually. I think I still have my R Markdown snippets separate, but code snippets, RStudio, R Markdown. So these are like the ones I have for R Markdown. Now for R Markdown, like I sometimes want my hard-coded text tables in Markdown, so I have like tab stops for tables up to from 1 to 9 columns. Various picture ones, break for when I do Word document exports. This one is for the footnotes, a ggplot, code chunk, Python, some HTML. In R Markdown, this is all an R Markdown snippet. So these hotkeys will only work when the document type is Markdown. But there are other types of snippet files that RStudio can import. I have one for just R, which is where at the bottom, right here, dplyr filter, and I actually have it set. I didn't do it for this example, but I can do df, which is, for me, I'm just thinking of dplyr filter, df, and then it lets me type in the argument of what I want. So weight greater than or less than 240. I tab, and then it lets me choose whether I want to actually pipe that into something else or if I'm done. And then the last tab is just, on the new line. So that is, snippets. So you can actually have this file, edit it, and make your own snippets. You just type snippet, and then what you want the snippet to be named. So I'm going to type, to do this, I'm going to type 4, and then do shift tab, and then it will throw this stuff into the editor. And then all the stuff in $signs is the exact same sort of tab stop syntax you'll see in like VS Code. It's just tab stops. And code snippets. And you can have it for each of these types of files. So if you have a file open and I have an R script open, all of these snippets are valid. If I have an HTML file open, all these snippets are valid. And you can change these and customize them to fit your needs. But also, if you are in a specific code chunk, you can actually use the snippets from the file type. So like these SQL snippets, I could use in a SQL code chunk inside an R Markdown document, even though it's a Markdown document. So that's one little like trick, is that you can have a Markdown document, use these in the actual Markdown space, and then inside of the code chunks, use these snippets from the actual languages that are in that code chunk, and have all of these snippets available. I use snippets a lot. Especially with like the dplyr filter. I've been button mashing that one a lot lately, as well as just the hotkeys for assignment and the pipe. So yeah, these are very useful code snippets, very worthwhile to learn, and it'll just make your analysis of your data just that much easier. Yeah, pipe everything into grep.